Welcome to the Bill and Callie Show on WVLP-LP 103.1 FM and streaming live at WVLP.org or on your TuneIn app. We are broadcasting live from the historic 1 Center Street building in beautiful Valparaiso, Indiana. The Bill and Callie Show is underwritten by Bill Moran and Callie Rosala. And now, here's Bill. And I, Megan Johnston, am filling in for Callie today.
Yeah, and stop filling in. Kelly is here, so it's
she's here.
She goes here. Megan, why don't you do this?
Yeah,
so
make sure this is what I'm here for.
Again, our partnership with the PAC, which we really appreciate.
Yes.
Let me turn down my phone. Kelly usually tells me when she's saying, "Turn down your phone."
Yeah, right. You got all these things.
You're gonna have to fill in for Kelly, like just verbally abuse me.
I don't think I could ever
ridicule me.
Kelly, so.
No. Oh my gosh. All right. Well, welcome to the Bill and Kelly Show. With us today, we have Melinda Kunst, who's the author of "Call Me Master" and "Rising from the Ashes." Welcome to our show, Melinda.
Well, thank you for having me.
And you can just a little bit closer to the microphone. Okay. There you go. Great.
It's intimidating.
And we'll get back to you in just a few minutes. Megan has some PSAs to read.
Yes. So we have, I shouldn't say we. There is an annual WVLP Hog Roast coming up. It is going to be July 13th. That's a Friday from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the Butterfield Pavilion, which is at the intersection of Evans and Calumet here in Valparaiso. The cost is $20 per ticket. Children 12 and under eat free with a paying adult. So this says, our bounty is provided through the collaborative efforts of veteran food service pros David Hemdahl from KP Catering and Mike Willard. Additionally, there are yummy desserts, which will cap off the meal. It's great fun for all. Tickets are available at the door, but to reserve yours today, please call Greg Kovac at 219-476-9000 or email info@wvlp.org. It sounds like it will be a great event to come support your local community radio station.
Thank you, Megan. And we just want to restate, this is a fundraiser for your community-based station. We are an all-volunteer station. We really only have one paid employee who has to look over all the transmitting and all that, the transmitter, all the audio equipment and the financials. But other than that, and really that's just small part-time, and how he gets everything done, we don't know. But all of the hosts are volunteer hosts. We come on and talk about various different issues, or we play music that we love, and we have everything from community-based radio shows to music shows, which we have a wide. You name the genre, we have it here on WVLP. Everything, except maybe country and western.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think we have a country. Oh boy, I could see that.
If anyone out there is interested.
Yeah, and by all means, please come out and visit with us on Friday. You will have excellent food, great food. I believe there will be some entertainment there. Some people, some of our show hosts are also gifted artists, so they'll either hear music, have some access to great food, and plus be able to meet your favorite show host. So, and you can meet Kelly too.
Yeah, that's the most important.
The most important. Come out and meet Kelly.
Yes.
So with that, thank you, Megan.
Yes.
And with that, we'll turn over to our guest, Melinda. Welcome again. Gosh, it's such a pleasure. I've just met you, 2 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago.
And it was kind of interesting how we met. And, for all reasons, everything always happens for a reason. I happen to be into what I call our studio, Sip Coffee House 2 in Highland, where we record one of our shows, broadcast live. And you happen to be there doing a book signing.
Yes.
And so, I got to meet you and got copies of your books, which I appreciate. And I thought, gosh, we've covered this topic on our show before, and we'd love to have you on. And here we go. So, and thank you for coming on. So why don't you tell us a bit about yourself, your background, where you were raised, and where you went to school, and then we'll get into your books.
Oh, sure. Well, I'm originally from Chicago, and we moved around quite a bit. Ended up in Thornton, Whiting, And then, let's see, Lansing. So we skipped around quite a bit. Went to Griffith. I was there for a while after I had gotten married. And, well, everything else is kind of history there. But I did go to Thornwood High School, graduate in '88 as well. Yeah, so I'm your lady that's been on the PTA, the vice president. I was with Moms Club International. I was a state coordinator as well at one point in time. I've been your Girl Scout leader, your Cub Scout leader, so been a little bit of everything into my church as well.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So yeah, I bounced around quite a bit.
Cool.
Great. And so we'll get into your stories here because they're very compelling and really tugging at our heartstrings, just reading through some of these stories that you tell about. And, the two books again, and I'll actually... let me see if this works. I do have pictures. Yes, Rising from the Ashes, and then the other book is Call Me Master. Chronologically, we're going to start with Call Me Master first, talking about that because chronologically that was the story of abuse, domestic violence, and oh my word, I just, as I'm reading through them, it is a mixed sadness and anger. For what you went through, and we'll get back to that in just a bit. But then also, you talk about your life after, and that's in Rising from the Ashes, and what an appropriate name. And kind of one thing I'm going to call you out on just a bit. When we first met, you started talking about your writing style and about how. Excuse the emergency alert, it means nothing. So, and never fear, because you know why? Batman is here.
That's right.
Never fear, citizens. Batman is here. So, but you said that, I'm not a very good writer, blah blah blah. And I'm going to tell you, I'm very impressed on your use of imagery and the words you use to tell your story. I mean, they're very vivid, and so give yourself some credit. They're very beautifully written, very beautifully. So, and let's begin talking about one of them. Let's start, I guess, chronologically, which makes the best sense. Call Me Master. And, I was thumbing through these. I'll admit, I didn't read the entire book, but I went through and picked out some things. And gosh, the first chapter, the spaghetti night, oh my word. It just, it made me kind of shudder that someone would get treated. So tell us about spaghetti night.
Actually, it's a typical night, a typical day. My then husband, would come home. I'd have to undress him, take his shoes off, take his clothes off, his work clothes. He was a roofer. So I'd have to disrobe him so he can get into something a little more comfortable. Just at that point in time, as most times, he came home very angry and was very upset. It could have been that someone cut him off in traffic. There's no real rhyme or reason why he was upset. He wasn't a drinker, not into drugs or anything like that at all. But he came home very angry. And just despite I'm trying to calm him down because I know this situation's escalated just because you can see it. He's not talking to me. He's just the way he's looking at me. And I could see that this is going to escalate into something a lot worse if I don't try my best to calm him down. And I had been making some food and lost track of that food. My noodles were mush. I burnt my garlic bread, and then he noticed that. He smelled that. One thing led to another, where he then got a little heavy-handed with me.
And now the other thing that you can't take out of this story is your children were there.
Right.
And so they witnessed all this.
How many children do you have?
I have three.
Three.
I have a fourth from a new marriage.
Okay.
But at that time I had
Gotcha.
three.
Okay. And how old were they?
At the time of that, they were under, I'd say under 10.
Okay.
Yes, the three of
Wow.
them.
So before we go further, I'm wondering if you can just give kind of an overview of this book, Call Me Master, and maybe the time span of life that you wrote about and what was going on during that time?
Oh, sure. I went back from when I was a child.
Okay,
I actually
wow.
witnessed my mother going through abuse as a child.
Wow, okay.
And my mom eventually, she was a strong woman. She still is. She did end up standing up for herself. Well, that didn't sit so well for my stepdad at the time. And so
Okay.
he turned his violence towards myself. So I grew up as a childhood abuse survivor.
Abused, wow.
Yeah, so by the
Okay.
time I was 13, though, she moved on, got a new man, that sounds wrong,
Okay. Yeah,
someone
yeah,
else
mhm.
that made her happy. He's a great guy.
Good.
And never lifted a hand to her.
Good.
And or myself or my
So,
sisters. So
yeah.
he's a good guy. So
Okay.
it goes back from that,
Wow.
from my childhood, and to the current.
To your own marriage.
Yes.
Wow.
Right, and that's something that, because that you tell that story later on in the book, but so you pretty much been exposed to abuse all your childhood and adult
Right.
life.
There was at least a good 4 years maybe where I didn't have any of that, and it all seemed very weird. But and then enter Will into the picture. So I was with him since I was 16.
So this type of behavior, hate to say it, was, I don't want to say normalized,
It was
but
normal.
and so you thought nothing of it.
Right.
And I mean, to go through, and you tell this very vividly, he expected you to take off his dirty clothes for him. I mean, I'm thinking back, this is childlike behavior. Mommy, coming in and needing to be changed. 2 or 3-year-old would do that for, but oh my word. So yeah, as we went on, things got bad, and I believe the garlic bread was burnt, and
Yes.
he punished you for that, right? And made you eat the garlic bread,
Right.
that burnt garlic bread. Oh boy, it makes me sick. But nonetheless, so that is, what made you come up with that particular opening to the book? I wonder. Is that
It was just a situation that stuck out in my head.
right?
And that was the one that I don't know what made me segue into from any of the others, pick that one, but that one just stuck out in my mind. A lot of these situations, I might forget where my cell phone is or where my keys are, but a lot of those situations I can remember the smells, I can remember the colors, just so vividly, like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
And I might not know what I had for dinner a couple days ago, but those situations,
Those traumatic
they
events.
they are
Yeah.
imprinted in my mind,
Yeah.
and just with vivid detail.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how long was your marriage that was abusive? How long did you endure that?
Almost 20 years.
Wow.
Almost 20 years.
And was it a everyday thing, weekly? Was it just
Well, that's the
sporadically?
thing. We didn't know. There would be times where it would be daily,
Mm.
and there would be times where we'd have maybe a couple days. You didn't know when the shoe was going to drop, and that was what was so scary. You were always walking on eggshells. You just
Yeah.
didn't know.
Yeah.
We would have what they call the honeymoon cycle, where everything would be wonderful.
yeah.
Be buying us stuff. Would be great for maybe a day, maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks, maybe 3 or 4 months would go by, and it would
Okay.
be wonderful. And then
Yeah.
something would happen, and then bam,
Wow.
we'd be back to square one.
Wow. So during that 20 years, did you ever reach out for help or say, I can't do this anymore, this needs to stop now? Or was it just something, like Bill said, that was just normal for you, so you knew you had to just endure it and get through it?
I knew it wasn't normal.
Mhm.
My best friend was the Lord at the time too, so I always talked to him, prayed
Okay.
and whatnot.
Yeah.
But I knew it wasn't normal. I knew that he wanted something more for me, and that this wasn't it. But I did in 2007. Finally made a breaking point and said I just had to leave. I was at, we ran an antique shop at the time, and I had called him for whatever the reason, and we had a special event for our vendors. It was Taco Day. We were Cinco de Mayo. We were celebrating that, so I was excited, and he's like, well, when are you coming home? And I don't know. We just got involved. It's going to be after the customers leave. And he's like, well, I want you home now. It's like, I can't. The kids are here. They're all excited. We're going to have a little party. And he's like, no, I want you home now. And then he hung up, called me back, and was very, very angry. He's like, you need to come home now.
Yeah.
If you don't get home within the next 20 minutes, I'm going to bash your face in. So I was all shaking, and I was upset. My mother-in-law, she was there, and my sister-in-law too, and they're like, you can't go home. Like, no. I had just happened to be talking with somebody from a local shelter, St. Jude's House in Crown Point, around that time, and I knew something was going to, I was just reaching that breaking point.
Yeah.
So I called for information a week before, and this was it. This is like, I can't go home. I can't.
So you just didn't?
I did. I called them up, and they took me right in.
Wow. And so...
But I went back.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask, yeah.
I went back.
Yeah, so and one of the things that we have some listeners out there that are thanking you for bringing this story to light, because they've been survivors themselves, and so it's something that, you know, maybe that was the purpose, that you'd eventually make these stories public and let people know, you know, this isn't acceptable behavior. There's a way out. You know, and one thing, it sounds like there was both emotional and physical abuse.
Oh, yes.
And there are people that just go through the emotional abuse, you know, the threats and so on. And, you know, at some point, was it always both of them combined? Did he ever attempt to make amends or get better with the relationship, or was it always?
There was always that. You were going on a roller coaster. It's always up and down. Oh, I'll change, honey, I'll change. I love you so much. I don't know what made me do this. Or he'd break down and cry, and then I'd feel sorry for him, and I'd want to fix him, you know, because
Sure.
I'm myself, I'm a healer, I'm a fixer, so I wanted to fix him so badly, even though I knew in the back of my mind, something's wrong, I need to go. I might not make it through this year, you know, or make it through the month. But I wanted to fix him. I felt so bad for him. He came from a broken situation himself. So that gave me even more of a sympathy type feeling towards him, where I wanted to help him. But I couldn't. It was not only the physical, the emotional, mental, it was also financial abuse too. He was holding that over me, medically too, because he had the insurance. So, you know, if you leave me, you'll have nothing. You'll have nothing. You won't have any insurance. You won't have any money. You'll have nowhere to go.
Wow.
That sort of thing. So he held that over me, and I believed it.
Wow.
So the one thing that we'll go on to some of these other stories, and you tell about your teenage years and under moving on. Do you want to tell us about that chapter in the book?
Oh, sure. Let's see. My teenage years, they were pretty, I was pretty much, at one point in time, I had seen what happened with my mom. I didn't want to go through the same abuse that she did. You know, I knew she was strong and whatnot, but it's like, I'm never going to end up like that. No, I'm just going to kind of be a free spirit and be foot free and fancy free, and I didn't want to be like that. I wanted to just kind of explore the world. I had all kinds of dreams and aspirations to do, but then I met Will, and it kind of took a different route than I wanted it to at that point in time. Even though I tried to leave, my friends saw his affections towards me, all the phone calls, all the gifts, him waiting for me at my house. They saw that as something cute. Hey, I wish my boyfriend paid that much attention to me. You know, that's kind of cool. He's buying you stuff. That's neat. You should be appreciative. And I didn't see it then as that. I had this sick feeling in my stomach, and my spidey senses were going off saying, you know what, this isn't right. Something's wrong. But I thought, you know what, you're being stupid. This is someone that loves you. He's confessing his love. And just go with it and just see what happens from there. And kind of did that. And
Okay.
And so you went through this in your teenage years, and now there is one section of the book that I found it was mixture. Because one of the things that people forget about this, even though they try to be domineering, there's still jealousy involved. Yes. And I would guess after reading this, looking for love in all the wrong places, it was jealousy coupled with paranoia that you were having an affair with someone else. But he asked you to do things that put you in positions, I mean, some weird... but this book is graphic in nature, and both in language and description. So he was asking you to take part in sex acts that were strange and not normalized. There were threesomes and things like that, but yet afterwards he was jealous.
right.
So, which is kind of interesting. He asked to be put in those situations, but then there's jealousy. So, did that again flare up into anger, physical violence because of those jealousies?
Oh, yes, because then I would be cheating on him while he was gone at work with these people. Oh, you must be talking to them. You must be on the internet with them. You must be seeing them. And they like you better than me. And it was kind of a warp.
But yet
really
he was
warped.
the one who put you in that position.
Right.
And so, but then he became jealous after the
Right.
fact. Yeah, again, one of the things that next week we're actually going to have some people on talking about mental health and, and some, how people psychologically are broken sometimes, and paranoia is, just a symptom of yet another mental illness, and depression. We're going to be talking about it as well, and a lot of these people who exert these type of behaviors have some severe clinical depression going on.
Yes, they do.
And that's it. Did he ever get help during this? Did he ever go seek counseling or?
In 2007, he did. He had, throughout our relationship, he had various suicide attempts, or he would claim, "Well, I'm going to kill myself," or he turned off the gas in the house. He turned off the flame in the house, so it was just the house filled with gas at one point in time. That was in 2009, but in 2007, they did a wellness check on him. He called, and he said he was saying goodbye. He was saying goodbye to me, and tell the kids goodbye. And I was in the car with my sister, and I'm like, well, good, fine. And my sister's like, no, look, if he's going to do this, what are you going to tell the kids? You have to do something. You have to call somebody, at least have them check. And so, fine, we'll go ahead. So we called the police. Actually, the policeman just happened to pull up. It was kind of strange.
Wow.
But anyway, police car pulled up. He went through the motions and did have someone out there. They found him in the car, in the garage, with a hose attached to his car. So he was trying to do something with himself.
Now, chronologically, where was this in your marriage? This is still deep in the heart of the marriage?
In 2007, I was at the point where I was ready. I was
So
done.
you had left already.
I was done.
And where were the children at this point
They
in
were
time?
with me.
They were with
All
you.
three of them
So
at that time were with
they
me.
never experienced any of these actions by him as self-destructive.
They didn't see that part, but they did hear him from time to time saying that he was going to kill me. They saw him hold a knife to me. They've seen him choke me, push me down the stairs. They've witnessed him beating me. So they saw quite a bit of that. I would have to sit at his feet because call me master. I'd have to call him master. So they witnessed quite a bit more than I really wanted them to.
And, one of the things that I'll state, just because we know quite a few police officers and law enforcement officials, and Dave Reynolds, the sheriff, who's extremely vigilant about domestic violence in Porter County, so much so that, he's supportive of the caring place and not only that, programs within the jail. And what I'm about to ask is, at any point during the time, did he get arrested for domestic violence, or was it a point that you were afraid to call because you were feared that it would meant that you would suffer some repercussions?
I never called. Because I was afraid. I was afraid that he'd harm me. He told me if I tell anybody, he was going to kill me. I never told anybody.
So he went
no one would
on.
believe me.
So at that point he went unpunished for all these.
Right.
This is,
Right.
Battery, assault and battery,
Yes.
whether and it's domestic violence. And one of the things that I know that these things get so difficult to even enforce because it is domestic, even though it is a crime. Police officers are so fearful when they have to respond to domestic violence because they're so volatile.
Right.
They feel that their own safety is at risk. They don't know if someone's going to pull out a gun or something of that nature. Now, going through the divorce, as you eventually got divorced from him, was any of this brought up in hearings or anything of that?
Oh yes, quite a bit of it. Actually, he when I finally left him in 2009, he came out. Well, he had been stalking me, still stalking me, but he hired somebody, a group of guys, 3 of them, for $10,000 to kill me. And so I did tell the police as soon as I was alerted about that. They had a camera, they had a shovel. As soon as the deed was done, they were supposed to film it and give it to him so he knew, so he can finish paying them off. We gave all the information to the police. These gentlemen did come down. They did give an affidavit as well, but they weren't credible. They had had run-ins with the police before. Since they had such a sketchy background, the police said, no, sorry, they weren't credible, and they dropped the case.
Wow.
So the prosecutor's office dropped
Right,
the case.
right.
So was this in Lake County?
This was in Lake County.
So at this point, because these men had arrest records, the fact that they were coming through to actually testify, yes, he is paying us, that somehow disqualified them
That
as
disqualified
witnesses.
them. Yes, sir.
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, and so at that point you probably felt, gosh, the law is not on my side.
I did. I did
And-
quite a few times.
Yeah.
It's very frustrating because I had order protection after order protection, and he would just keep breaking them. Always breaking them. And it was like, I'm doing the right things. I'm going through the motion. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and I didn't feel protected at all. I didn't.
Wow.
So a typical abuser, that's one of the things that they always like to place the blame on someone else and blame someone else for their he obviously was blaming you for everything. Was there someone else that he used as a target of his aggression? Did he ever blame his parents? Or?
He did. He blamed his parents. He blamed his parents. He blamed his sisters. It was their fault. He was like this. It was his dad's fault. He was like this. He never took responsibility for his own actions.
So he often lashed out at them as well?
Oh, sure. Oh, sure. That's why I had asked them to come forward during court sessions, and they were afraid because he threatened to burn down their house. He said that he would kill them. So his mom at the time says, no, I'm not coming forward. No way. I'm afraid. We can't.
Yeah, I guess that's something I've read about, that this is a characteristic of an abuser, is their blame.
Yes.
Everyone's to blame except them. And by golly, even though they're committing a crime. So let's talk going through back to your childhood and discuss that for a bit. And this is foreign to me because I hate to, but when I grew up, it was great. I often tell people my memory of my parents, who are both passed on, is love, nothing but love. They disagreed, but nothing was ever. I don't know if it was they purposely hiding me from that or what, but I just have this vivid memory of them dancing in the living room.
Oh, that's awesome.
To Glenn Miller. I think they both love Glenn Miller, and so so all this is kind of foreign to me in a way, but then I hear about these stories, and I guess I could draw my mind to understand them. So, talking about your childhood, because you grew up with an abusive father, and fortunately that began the normalization. Talk about that, when you were, and it was just not towards your mother, but it was to you as well.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So.
He had no one else to direct his anger towards, and he was also very heavily into drug abuse himself.
Drug and alcohol.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I know he would do his drug runs, and he'd keep me in the car. I'd be in the car for hours waiting for him to do whatever he did in there. Wow. So, God bless him for doing that. I didn't have to be exposed inside the homes, thank goodness. Who knows what would have happened after that. But no, he was angry. He was out of work at one point in time. So I'd come home from school. I'd forget my lunchbox. So he'd give me a whipping because I forgot that. Or he'd give me a bloody lip. Just whatever the reason. It rained outside, he would just direct his anger towards me. Now, when he was drinking, he was awesome. He was an awesome guy. But when he came down from that, or from using drugs, he was just this maybe manic depressive. He was very depressed. We have no contact with him. We haven't had any for many years.
So he's not been a part of your life
No,
even recently.
no.
There is this one theorem that people always held that I'm not sure has merit. I just think it may be coincidental, but please give us your opinion that you're often drawn to someone that's very much like your parent or father or mother. Did you, hindsight 2020, looking back, did you now see something that maybe, this is like my dad or something?
I do, and I think that's something that you can eventually break yourself of, but you attract a lot of those same souls. We have a lot of energies with us. I don't want to get too far out there, but we attract that, and it's almost like they sense.
Yeah.
They have a sense that you are a wounded soul, and you seem to attract a lot of folks that are a little bit on the maybe damaged side, a little
Yeah.
a little hurt themselves as well.
And with that, we're going to have to take a bit of a station break here. And so, Megan?
Yes. You are listening to the Bill and Callie Show on WVLP LP 103.1 FM and streaming live at WVLP.org or on your TuneIn app. We are broadcasting live from the historic 1 Center Street building in beautiful Valparaiso, Indiana. The Bill and Callie Show is underwritten by Bill Moran and Callie Rosala.
You guys saw Kelly. See,
Yeah,
she's
she's
here.
on the camera.
She's here. Yeah, she's busy, but yeah, she's here now.
I have a question really fast.
Go right ahead.
Is that a common thing that people who are maybe abused in childhood end up with an abuser?
It's on my own opinion, but yes.
Okay,
A
okay.
large majority of us do.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
It's,
Yes.
and probably why you
Or-
explained.
And sometimes the opposite. You might be abused as a child, and then you might become an abuser as well.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I think that's all choice. We all
Okay.
have free will, and we make that choice consciously.
And why then, when you were abused and you left, did you go back? Because I hear that too, that's a common theme, that, women or people who are abused, they get out, but then they go back to what was.
Right, and more than once, for a couple reasons. One, his mom begged me to go back, and she made a real good case. I felt bad. I felt really bad. It made it sound like, oh, look what you did. You left him, and now he's this broken man, and I felt so guilty. So I came back for that. But also, another reason was it was familiar. I had been so used to this for so long that it was familiar, and this other stuff. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
This new stuff, finding a job, finding housing, that was all scary for me. I'm sorry.
I can't
No, it's
imagine.
perfectly fine.
That was all scary. So going back to this, I knew what I was going to expect. I knew what was expected of me. I knew what I had to do. So that was normal.
Yeah.
That was, even though the situations were scary, that was still normal to me, that it made it safe. In
was
some
secure
weird way.
in some
Insecure.
way,
Yeah,
yes,
he's going to
yeah.
take care of me. I had
Yeah.
money. I'm going to have a roof over my head. I'm going to have insurance. My kids will be taken care of.
Right.
I just have to deal with this. Yeah.
And now I think that's a good way to segue into your next book, which talks about post all this horrible
Yes.
things that you went through from childhood till the divorce, and even then things weren't exactly a rose garden. But you talk about that very vividly in Rising from the Ashes, your second book, which again, I got to hand it to you. You're a gifted writer. You are very gifted. The imagery again here is, but you talk so eloquently about how you tried to get your life back, and even your new husband, who has been a blessing to you, Terry.
Terry.
And so why don't you tell us a bit about what that was like after the divorce and separation, and after divorce, I assume you still had protective orders against Will.
Yes. Oh,
And
yes.
Talk about that and what
Well,
you
even
felt during that period of
After
time.
I left, that time when you leave your abuser is one of the most volatile times. A lot of victims end up having a lot more wounds. They actually might end up dying. This is a very hotbed. Keeping yourself away from that person as much as you can to try and do, whether it be have a good support as well, for people to surround you to help, maybe take your phone away. I mean, literally, it was almost like an addiction. I had to see what he was writing to me and whatnot, but it was upsetting me at the same time. It was a weird cycle.
Yeah.
So my sister would take the phone away. She's like, I will let you know if it's something important. You don't need to do this. You're getting yourself all worked up. You're getting upset again. She took it away from me. It went on like that for a while. There were ups and downs going through the legal system, having an attorney, losing attorney, so I had to do a lot of the divorce by myself and filing different paperwork as well on my own. I had to learn how to do the legal system, but that was empowering for me because at the
Yeah.
time I was feeling very lost. So this kind of gave me some strength back to say, hey, I can do this. I can file these things. I can go in front of this judge and talk as best I can and get some stuff done for me and these children as well. That was very hard, though, because I was still working on my self-esteem. I wanted to crawl under the blankets and just shut the world out. I didn't want to deal with it. This is too much grown up. I'm done. I want to hide. This is supposed to be easy. I'm done with him. I left. I did the hard part. Why is it still so hard? And that was very difficult. It was very difficult. I was very depressed. I was very sad. I wanted everything to be over, and I couldn't figure out, why is he still stalking me? We're done.
Right.
I didn't understand the dynamic of in his brain why he was still trying to hold on so tight.
Sure.
As well. But I had to do stuff for me.
Yeah.
There probably is paranoia there, him thinking you're doing something. And again, at that point, the marriage is done,
Right.
but you think, why should he care? But evidently there are still feelings for you,
Oh, right.
and something that made him jealous to the point where he didn't want to see you live a life outside of what you guys had. So there was still fear going on after the divorce.
Oh, yes.
What is this guy going to do now? And then you come from a history that you didn't exactly trust law, the legal system, again, that they ignored a big portion of what you're going through. So this guy's still out there.
Right.
And talk to day about that. Here we are, days, weeks after the divorce. Just simple things like going to the grocery store and going out. How did you feel?
The first time we went out to the grocery store, it was like we were like kids in candy store there. We've got all kinds of cereal that we wanted, all kinds of food, all kinds of things that we always wanted before.
Aww.
That weren't allowed.
Yeah.
So it was, and we stayed out past 10 o'clock.
Wow.
Usually we had to be home and tucked into bed by 8 o'clock. So it was so cool to be out past dark time, past the lights.
And I just want to bring back, this is not just post your marriage. Mm-hmm. This is the abuse that, certainly the feelings you felt being away from that, your memories of childhood abuse,
Right.
And what you went on more recently through your marriage. And now you're free to do things you don't have to check in with anyone or
Right.
feeling worried about someone criticizing. Mm-hmm. So that just,
It was very freeing. It really was.
Wow.
Yeah. What else was different or exciting or new
Oh,
to
gosh. It was like a whole new world. There was no one to say no. No, you can't do this. No, you're stupid, or you're not smart enough. There was no
Yeah.
one there to hold me back.
Yeah.
And that was an awesome feeling. I went ahead and I went back to school. I did medical assisting. I got my certificate for that. I became a doula, doing reflexology, aspiring herbalist. So everything is now so new to me.
Wow.
It's just a whole new world. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Wow.
I wish I would have done this sooner.
Yeah.
I really do. But
Sure.
everything happened for a reason. Everything had to happen for a reason in the way it did. And I know someone once asked me, if you could, knowing what you know now, would you change it? And I wouldn't, because I have these beautiful children. I have these beautiful children. And then I met my new husband, Terry, call him Mr. Awesome. And we have a son together. And it's so different, even the parenting. My pregnancy was different with him. With my ex, he'd kick me in the stomach, he'd call me names, push me down the stairs, say, I wish you were dead, and that child was dead, and it was just an awful experience. He'd call me fat and other horrible names. But with Terry, it's like, honey, I have a craving for peaches at 3 in the morning. And he's like, okay, let's go, I can get a fritter. So it was a totally different experience.
Wow.
It was awesome.
Let's talk about Terry and how you met him, and how, because that's a story in and of itself, how you met, and because he wasn't from around here, right?
Well, he was from a different area. He was from Hebron.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time I was at the antique shop. And he came in, and we had consigners that would come in. So he came in as a consigner. There was never any hanky-panky. It was all professional. But I did break down one point in time, and he saw that. And we talked briefly, and he said, you know what, if you ever ditch the guy, I will buy you a celebratory drink. So, this is months before I left. And one of my friends says, you know what, you need to get out of the house. This is after I left. Let's go call up some people. It's like, I don't know anybody anymore.
Yeah.
So I called him. I called a few other people, and not much of a drinker, but I had a little bit, and that just led me under the table and on top of the table. But he offered to take me home, to get me some food first, and gosh, we hit it off. I let him know my whole story. Everything, the swinging stuff, everything, and his eyes were like as big as saucers. But after that, he called me a few days later, and we were peas in the pod ever since.
Wow.
Amazing.
That is
So
amazing.
And so talk about now you guys, how long have you been together?
Oh gosh, now 9 years.
9 years.
9
Wow.
years.
So
Yes.
this is no experience, evidently, that, that past history. And so this guy's been extremely supportive of you and your children.
And it's
so.
new to him, though. I mean, we had some friction because he's not used to that. He grew up like yourself in a good home. His parents were loving. They martinis, and they would talk and they'd dance. And so this was all totally different to him. To deal with children, especially my kids, that were so damaged due to the abuse, he had a hard time. He butt heads with some of my kids there a few times, and he wouldn't understand, well, why are you doing it this way? Why are you guys doing this thing this way? And it's like, well, we're used to this, or you don't understand. Or we spilt milk once during dinner, and we all froze. The kids and I all froze. And he sat at the table, and he's like, doesn't anyone want to get a towel? Well, we were waiting. We were so used to a response being violent or very forceful, we just all froze. So he's like, I'll get a towel. I'll go grab one.
Wow.
So he didn't understand. So the more we spoke about different situations, the more he got a little bit of a glimpse of what we went through.
Yeah.
But he's like, I don't get it. I don't know how a person can do this to another person. Love's not supposed to hurt. You're not supposed to do this to someone you love. And you're not.
How did you and your kids end up processing what happened? Did you go to therapy, get counseling? Did you go to support groups? I mean, how were you able to process through all that and become
It's a lot
healthy?
to process, and it's still an ongoing thing. We did go to counseling. That was through court. I even attempted to go before
Gotcha.
the court had given us a therapist. But the kids wouldn't talk. They won't open up.
Sure.
They did at one point find somebody that they felt comfortable with, but Will had threatened that person. And so she says, I can't see you guys anymore. I'm afraid for my life. And she says, I'm sorry, I have to let you go. So my girls never felt comfortable to open up with anybody. So they're still dealing with their own,
I'm sure.
situations.
Sure.
Let me, because I want to highlight that. So the person that was counseling your children,
Right.
was threatened by your ex?
Yes.
And she was a professional counselor?
Correct.
All right. And at what point did the law enforcement justify not getting involved?
They didn't do anything. Also, a GAL on the case. Also, there was like a stack of papers, really thick. There was over like 100+ text messages and emails sent to our GAL at the time, where Will had accused him and myself of having inappropriate relations. And that's why the GAL siding with me, and the judge just said, this is enough. And the GAL excused himself from our case.
What is a GAL for those
It's a
who may
guardian
not?
ad litem. That's a person that watches over the welfare of the children. He's looking for their well-being.
All right, so much
So
like the CASA.
Correct.
All right,
Correct.
so, just some of this is just foreign to, I'm sure a lot of people are maybe listening
I
out
didn't
there.
know myself until I got involved in this.
Yeah, domestic disputes and violence are, more and more as, we've had roundtable discussions about them, and we've had Mary Beth Schultz, who's the director of the Caring Place, on. And they're just foreign to me. I just, sometimes it's hard to grasp your mind around this. This is family, blood in a lot of cases, and yet it's the most volatile and the most dangerous. And, to the point where, but it is kind of concerning that that they knew about this behavior and they opted not to do anything about it. Right. And so, talk more about what you're going through up till now, because I mean, this is I could just sense when I first met you that you feel blessed, and you've got 2 great books, and by all means keep going, because these are great books. I don't know what you're passionate about writing next, but it's. You do have a very good tact for imagery, so don't lose that. Please don't lose that. So where are you at now? And let's talk a little bit about most recently. You got these, but you just published these 2017, and was the Call Me Master,
Right.
and then 2018, recently, Rising from the Ashes. So why don't you tell people about how they can get these books?
Oh, sure. I'm on Amazon right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, or you can come to a book signing, message me, and I'm happy to go ahead and work something out.
Right.
I do have them available also at Willow Switch in Rensselaer, and also at Something's Brewing in Unique Boutique. Sorry about that. And that's in DeMont.
And so, yeah, you do have some book signings. You do book signings. Was that one?
Yes,
so,
yes.
And if you just want to point people to where they're happy, I mean, you've got.
Sure. Well, if you go on Facebook to Hope When There Was None, that's my page. There's an update there of different events that I'll be at.
Okay.
So I'll be in. After this, I'll be in Brook, at the Brook Library.
Tell us a little bit about the process of writing these books. What motivated you to even write a book in the first place?
I started by blogging, and my sister Ann Terry had prompted me. Terry's like, you know what, I think it's good you like to write. I think it's good, maybe it's going to be a healing thing for you. So I started by blogging, and at that time it was more like an angry thing, and I wanted to get it out, all my frustrations and sadness, and that's where it started. I had enough people start to give me feedback and said, you know, you should really write your story down, not just your day-to-day stuff, but what you're going through, but just write it down. I'm sure it would help other people. And it took me a long time to do that, and finally it's like, okay, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to actually do this, and I did it. And also with the second book, I had a lot of people come and say, okay, you always have a smile on your face. You went through some crazy stuff. How did you do it? How did you do it? You're not hooked up on drugs. You're not, seeing a psychiatrist. What did you do? Right. So that's what the second book is about.
Wow. And so was that challenging, especially the first one? Was it challenging to really okay, I'm writing this down for people to read and for me to get my story out there, and digging into all of that? Was that hard at all?
That was hard because I felt very embarrassed. I felt very shameful. I was very afraid of any repercussions of what people are going to think. Oh, this woman, how stupid is she staying with this guy that's beating on her kids? And so that worried me. That scared me a lot. That really did. I didn't know what people would think, but at the time, it's bigger than me. It's not me. And and a little prompting there from the Lord just to say, you know what, this is bigger than you. You need to do this for other people, not for your glory. It's
You know, what strikes me as you've been talking is just these emotions that you felt of guilt, and then you just said shame, when these were things that were done to you, not anything that you did, not any fault of your own, but yet you still experience the guilt and the shame of it.
Oh, well, at that time, I was made to feel shame.
Yeah.
Well, you made me angry. If you wouldn't have done, burnt the spaghetti or burnt the garlic bread, you wouldn't be beaten right now. I wouldn't be spanking you if you would just do what I had done, what I had said to do. And so it made me feel like I was always the bad child. Wow. I was the bad kid. I did this. I did this, but now I know it's not me.
Yeah, right.
It's not me.
Right. That's good.
At what point, after the divorce, did you come to that revelation? It wasn't my fault?
I would say actually within the last 2 years. So it took some time. It took a long time for me to get there. And I was angry because it's like, okay, Lord, I want this to be done. I'm done. I'm out of that relationship. How come I'm not healed? I was so mad. I was angry. And all these feelings, the shame, the sadness, it should be gone by now. And I just couldn't process it. Why is it taking so long for me to feel better? I didn't get it. Why am I still having bad dreams? PTSD sort of things.
And I don't mean to pry here, so excuse that this seems like prying, but you and Terry, are there ever any times when you think, oh, I'm going to relive? I'm not suggesting that it would be abusive, but do you ever have thoughts in your head pop in, and what if he's the same old, what I'm used to, my dad and my ex-husband? Do those thoughts ever haunt you?
No.
Good.
No, but a lot of victims, unfortunately, and survivors do find that cycle. They repeat it. They do find somebody that is abusive. They attract that person again. You also, when you're staying, you don't want to be alone. So many people stay because, well, if I leave, then I'm going to be alone. I can't do this by myself. But you can. You can do this by yourself. It's very empowering to say, hey, I did this, and I did it on my own. I didn't need a man or a woman, because men can be abused too, to get through this. I can do this on my own, stand on my own.
Yeah, that's good. So let's talk about your kids. Okay. Where are they at today?
Well, Nathan, from the book, he is still with his dad. sadly. We kind of tried to have a relationship, but he was out of his dad's house, but now he moved back in, so now we're not talking anymore. So that's still very hard. But my girls...
And Nathan, though, he has issues. Is he still in school?
No, he's graduated.
He's graduated, okay.
Right,
But
he is autistic.
Right, and
Yes.
so he's got some deficit. So is he autistic to the point where he can't be self-supporting?
He could,
being
but see, the last time I talked to him, which was earlier this year, he didn't even know he was. I was just starting to get him treatment when all this went down. So when he went back to live with his dad never pursued any more help for him. So he didn't know that, hey, I need to have help. I didn't know this. He goes, Mom, I didn't know that. Dad didn't ever tell me.
So so again, unfortunately, you don't have contact with your son, but
Right.
your other children, there are 3 others.
There are,
Yeah.
little one,
Right.
and he's good. He's 7.
No.
And then my older daughter, her name is Jessica. She's 20, and we have a grandbaby. So
Ah.
grandbabies are awesome. She's
Join the
almost
club.
2. Yeah.
Oh man, they're great, aren't they?
They are.
Oh
they are.
man, I tell you.
And then Alex, she's 18. So the girls do have some residual. Again, they
Yeah.
never were able to talk to anybody. So there is some problems with depression. There is some cutting issues that they both have, anxiety issues. And they're just very, very fearful.
Yeah.
They live in a lot of fear themselves.
Loving on grandkids is the
But
best
yes,
therapy
that
in
is.
the world.
That is.
I tell you that right now. Kelly could tell you, especially with my grandson. Oh, he is a riot. His smile is so infectious. It is. But so that's great. So life is starting to blossom for you. And,
yes.
But what is great about this is you're still able to go back and tell this story.
Yes.
And in a vivid sense, and I know we've got someone out there who's also been a survivor as well that thanks you for telling this story.
Thank you.
So
Blessings
Connie is
for
out
you.
there listening to us, one of our avid listeners. So do you have any plans for another book?
Maybe, possibly. I'm also a Lyme disease warrior, so it might be more towards that.
Ah.
We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see what seed the Lord puts in my head.
Lyme disease, as in is that correct? I
Lyme
hear you.
disease, yes.
Lyme disease, so
Yes.
those ticks.
Oh, actually, mine was a spider bite. Once a spider, twice a spider, and then once a mosquito.
Oh my
They could be
gosh.
transferred by other vectors.
Jeez.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
so that ties into my story too, about how my body, because all of the stress affects your body. And I'm sorry, I got a hot flash, guys. I'm
It's
sorry.
okay.
Sweating bullets here. But all of that affects your body too. So it's really depressed my body so much, my adrenals, my liver, and so on and so on. All that stress, because you're living in that fight and flight situation for so long, it takes a toll on your body, and you don't even realize it. I didn't understand why I was having different symptoms back then, but it all had to do with the stress I was living under. And then finally, once I got Lyme disease, once I was infected, everything just went crazy.
Wow.
yeah,
You
one,
are a warrior.
yes, definitely.
you. Thank
Just
you.
reading through these, it sickening. As I'm reading through "Call Me Master," it just made me sick. But then going through from "Rising from the Ashes," it just a beautiful story, and that's perfect name for this book. It's absolutely rising, and congratulations on your
Thank
new
you.
life.
It's all the glory of God, really.
And I do want to remind people out there, particularly in Porter County, there are immense amount of resources for survivors of domestic violence, the Caring Place. And by the way, please care for the Caring Place. They're in the middle of a building project. And I think we're going to get some news, although I've been told by a particular party who's close that they can't disclose it, but I think there's going to be some news out on their building campaign.
Okay.
And so that is a caring, you're familiar with the Caring Place
Yes.
here in Valparaiso. They 27 beds for family and survivors of domestic
That's
violence. And so we hopefully something is going to come by pretty soon, because that 27 beds is not enough. When you look at the numbers,
Sadly, it's not.
it is definitely not enough. And the resources there for, but for those of out there listening, if you are a survivor or still a subject of domestic violence, don't feel alone. The Porter County particularly has a lot of resources. Our sheriff is your biggest advocate. I can't say that enough. He has worked hard and has a relationship with the Caring Place. Not only that and people don't realize this about the Porter County Jail, and Megan can speak to what they do for substance abuse. They are your biggest advocate. And not when someone who has been, an abuser goes into jail, there are a myriad of resources under the auspices of. Oh, help me! I just drew a blank. The person that's in the county jail that Jay Berkey.
Yeah.
Yes. Jay Berkey. How can I forget? Pies, pulled pork. Jay Berkey.
Yes, that's right.
Same family. But anyway, he ministers all over the resources for getting counseling for these people and so on. So there's an amazing amount of resources, and there are in Lake County as well. So don't feel alone out there. Please call for help, and we'll make some of those resources. If you go to the Porter County Sheriff's Department and look up, do a search on domestic violence, you'll end up with all the resources there. So, so. Possible another book coming out,
yes.
Right?
Yes.
And any travel plans or any neat plans that you and Terry have?
No, nothing. We just take everything day by day. I love being home. Previously, I didn't like being home, so I got involved a lot in my community and doing activities, but now I love being home. So
no, that's
we got
great.
Chickens and ducks and bees, and eventually I'd like to open up our area there to other survivors that would like to maybe learn from me about what I did, different grounding techniques and such, and just to come out and just share.
Yeah.
Dig in some dirt.
Cool.
Hug a chicken.
So you guys have like a farm going there?
We do a little mini farm.
Mini
yes.
farm?
Uh-huh.
Cool.
Awesome.
And where's that located?
We're in Morocco.
Morocco.
Right.
Okay, cool.
Morocco, yes.
Yeah, cool. And and you still frequent SIP, do you?
Yes, I do. It's my favorite place.
Well, we're going to have you on our show at SIP.
That would be awesome.
And maybe we could combine that with a book signing or something.
That would be
wonderful.
Neat. Yes.
Neat. So as we close out the show, I can't tell you how pleased we are that you decided to join us and tell your story. I know we have a few people out there that thanked you for telling your story. And the books again are Call Me Master by Melinda Kunst, and then Rising from the Ashes, and they're available on Amazon.
Correct.
And then also, are they bookstores around here or?
Not yet. Not yet. Just in at the Willow Switch, and also Something's Brewing in DeMont.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. And
or contact me. I'll be happy to hook you up.
Gone into Miles' bookstore yet?
Not yet.
No?
Not yet.
Oh yeah, go talk to James. He's a neat guy. He's a friend of ours. He's a little eclectic, but he's a neat guy. So by all means, look it up on Amazon. And the other thing we want to just remind you of a couple of things. Actually, we do have a show. We'll be on tonight at Wild Rose Brewery at 7 o'clock. We'll be there, Kelly and myself, and just talking and kicking back. And then at SIP Coffee House tomorrow at 1 o'clock. We are taping our guest today, which is kind of unusual for us, but he had a change in plans, which we try to be as accommodating as possible. And that is Hutch, the guy who actually played our intro at our last SIP show. Neat guy, neat folk guitarist, and we're trying to convince him to be our